Timmy was a pretty average kid that no one really understood. His mom, his dad, and Vicky were always giving him commands. They also just sucked as parents and as a babysitter. There was a lot of doom and gloom in his life, and this was enough for Timmy to get his own fairy godparents. And I find that more than fair. I have no issues with Timmy having Cosmo and Wanda. His life sucks, his parents suck, his school sucks, his bullies suck, and he's kind of a loser all in all. At least he has friends, I guess. And while there were several times where maybe he shouldn't have had fairies, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that would argue that he shouldn't have fairies. Now, what I will say that there were some people who have fairies that are kind of head scratchers. There's Remy Bucksaplenty, and very recently in the new show, the grandson of Doug Dimmadome, Dev, was given a fairy godparent. And not only that, it's Poof. I guess he goes by Perry now. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand why they have fairies. Being as lonely as they are, coupled with the level of neglect from their parents, does give a pretty good reason to bestow godparents to them, but it does lead me to the subject of this video. There were a lot of side characters in the show, and some of them really should have had fairies themselves, especially when you look at who has fairies. There are 3 in particular that really stuck out to me as characters who definitely needed a fairy, so let's look at them. But before we get to that, blah blah blah, please like the video if you end up liking the video, and why not subscribe to us? There's plenty on our channel, and we're planning on bringing back the longer videos, so stick around for that. I have some interesting ones in mind that you guys might like. Okay, now that the panhandling is out of the way, let's start with the first character. I think it's fair to say that if it wasn't for Vicky, Timmy wouldn't have gotten Cosmo and Wanda. I'm pretty sure he says as much in Channel Chasers, and it's for good reason. She's an absolute monster to kids that are in the babysitting age, and some adults know that I think about it. I know her whole motivation is supposed to be about making money, and I guess there's something there about the corruption of greed if I wanted to get pretentious about it, but it really just seems like she likes to torment and torture kids. Like, it's a sport to her. She's the Michael Jordan of evil babysitters, and I know she lives for the game. And you know who gets the worst of it? It's not Timmy. Personally, I believe that Vicky's younger sister Tootie gets it the worst, which is why she's the first person I think should have fairies. Vicky absolutely destroyed Tootie's life with the constant bullying, putting down, and being forced to do everything Vicky wants. And I mean, Tootie absolutely hates her, so it's not like Tootie isn't aware of how bad her situation is. She even was the one that was primarily the cause of Vicky's evil getting exposed in Channel Chasers, even if that didn't end up happening. This was best shown in the episode where Timmy gifted Cosmo and Wanda to Tootie. The whole reason that episode happens is because no one shows up to her birthday party, not even her own parents, because Vicky scares them all away. Well, that and Timmy being sort of a bad person. Plus, in that same episode, Wanda says they can't be gifted unless it's a kid twice as miserable as Timmy, which gets immediately proven. And if you want to take it even further, Vicky's presence in her life has caused her to have no friends and to be ultimately miserable. As far as I know, we haven't really seen her hang out with anyone, and I mean, it's a hard sell to be friends with the sister of Vicky. Honestly, it seems like her best friend in the show is Timmy, and that's really sad. At best, Timmy just feels bad for her, and at worst, he sees her as an enemy and is pretty mean to her. She's obsessed with him, and it's caused her a lot of anguish at times, mostly thanks to Timmy being wildly inconsiderate. It's interesting and a little tragic how her character turned out this way considering her relationship with Vicky in the pre-show episodes. Vicky was still Vicky, but was comparatively nice to Tootie and got mad at Timmy for scaring her. She even encouraged Tootie to pursue Timmy. Granted, it was to torment Timmy, but it was still nice to see Vicky support her sister, whatever the reason may be. Man, laying all of that out makes it even more crazy to me that Tootie didn't get fairies in the show. She's worse off than Timmy and isn't a bad person despite who her sister is. Fairies really could have made her life better like it did when she briefly had some, which does lead me to a theory as to why she doesn't have fairies. Again, in the episode where Timmy loans Cosmo and Wanda to her, the big conflict of the episode is that Tootie loves what Cosmo and Wanda did so much that she wants to reveal them to the whole world. I know she didn't know about the roles when she wanted to do that, but she's so one-track minded and obsessive that I can see her really pulling for it. So it kind of leads me to think that Tootie did in fact have fairies at one point in time, but along the way she revealed her fairies to someone and got them taken away. Plus, given how obsessed she was with Timmy, I can see her breaking the rules to try and do something love-related. Maybe it got too far and Jorgen had to step in. Okay, now I'm just writing fanfic, but you get the point. Maybe she had them and lost them, but Tootie is worse off than honestly any of the other characters in the show, and it's crazy to me that they don't talk about it in the show more than just loaning her some fairies because Timmy felt bad one time. The next kid who really should have had some fairies is more of an iffy one. He's a happy guy, and though his situation sucks, he seems to take it in stride, at least better than Timmy. And yeah, I'm talking about his best friend Chester McBadbat. Chester is interesting because his situation is arguably worse than Timmy's. Not to compare traumas or anything, but when it's figuring out who should have fairies, that's kind of what we're doing anyway. Chester is dirt broke, he lives in a crappy small trailer while Timmy lives in a nice house and AJ lives right next to him in a mansion. That's just real unfortunate. And as far as I know, he also has Vicky as a babysitter, so obviously that sucks. His dad is famously a loser, and while he genuinely does love his dad, it's gotta be hard to be heckled for something you didn't even do, and watching your dad get dunked on for being historically bad at baseball can't feel too good. He doesn't even have his mom because I'm pretty sure she left Bucky for the whole being bad at baseball and getting heckled for it thing. In the show though, it's heavily implied that him generally being a happy guy and having a great relationship with his dad who's always there for him is what's holding him back from getting fairies. In Fairy Idol, it's only when Chester loses his dad that it's decided that he'll be the next god kid. But I mean, is that really counteracting everything that's going on in his life? I know fairies look for miserable kids and Chester doesn't outwardly seem miserable, but what's to say he isn't just hiding it? Chester's a good guy and the last thing he would want is to hurt anyone. Again, in Fairy Idol, he wishes for a lot of good things and even selflessly gave up norms so that Timmy could be happy. I can see Chester hiding how miserable he really is from everyone else so that they don't worry about him. Am I looking too deep into a cartoon that definitely didn't think about this? Sure, I thought that was obvious, but there is a point that really makes me feel like Chester should have had fairies, and it's something shown in the show. No fanfic needed. There are a couple of times where Timmy lost Cosmo and Wanda due to whatever dumb thing Timmy did, and when that happens, we tend to see that Cosmo and Wanda are Chester's godparents. Sure, maybe it's because without Timmy, Chester's life would have been worse off, but it definitely at least seems like he's next in line. So why did Chloe get to come in and get fairies? I do know that Butch Hartman wanted a female lead in the show, so we got Chloe, but we could have got Tootie as a lead or even the person I'll be talking about next, but we'll get to that in a second. All I'm saying is that it would have been really cool if the show started to move towards Chester being a co-protagonist with Timmy. Them sharing fairies could be fun, especially because I feel like Chester contrasts morally with Timmy the most, so it would have been cool to see their dynamic with the introduction of shared fairies. Hope he's doing well in the future at least. Our last contestant in this tragic show is probably going to be the most divisive of the bunch. She isn't the most beloved character, but I really think she should have fairies. That's right, I'm talking about Miss Popular herself, Trixie Tang. I see her in a similar light to Chloe, where from the outside looking in, it seems like they have a perfect life, but when you dig deeper, you start to see their true feelings and how miserable they really are. And unlike Chloe, Trixie has the benefit of being a character we've known since the very beginning of the show, so maybe that would have softened the blow. And at the very least, she has to be a better candidate than Remy Bucksaplenty and Dev Dimmadome. Dev even has friends, that's kind of unfair. Trixie hangs with the popular kids, but it seems like they worship her more than they're friends with her. Look at Veronica, that poor girl is obsessed. And with Timmy too, to be fair. And in her best episode, The Boy Who Would Be Queen, we see that she doesn't have any friends that she could truly be herself with. The friends she does have judge her as soon as she steps outside of the societal norms, and that terrifies her, mostly because she has an unhealthy craving for attention, and I'm not saying that as a put down of her character. It's more of me being sympathetic because it runs her life and it's something she really needs to work on. It's something having a real friend could have helped a lot with. That's why she stays with the popular kids, it's her normal. And Trixie's only real friend, Samantha, vanished off the face of the earth unless you read that one comic. Trixie had a genuine bond with someone where she could be completely herself as she lost that person almost immediately. Look how sad she gets when she finds out Samantha isn't going to show up. I legitimately think that if Timmy stayed as Samantha the night of Trixie's birthday instead of trying to get a date from Trixie, she could have made real progress towards going against society and being herself. And yeah, I know that cartoons of that age were different, where there couldn't be any big permanent changes to the dynamics of the characters due to fear that it would cause confusion when the episodes inevitably air out of order, but it does unintentionally make the Samantha wish one of the cruelest things Timmy has unknowingly done. As for her parents, her dad seems to also worship her, and there's like no mention of Trixie's mom. Maybe her relationship with her dad is strong, but it's not like we get too much info about it one way or the other. I mean, he did let Timmy into their house looking absolutely crazy. Ultimately, Trixie is alone in the bubble she either made or was forced into, and it's quite tragic the more I pry into it. I'm just saying, it wouldn't take much work for the show to give us a reason why Trixie gets fairies. Being rich obviously isn't a factor, so I don't know, throw her a fairy. Timmy and Trixie sharing fairies would have been an interesting turn for the show, and I think it could have been cool. So there you have it, the 3 kids I think should have gotten fairies. But I would be remiss if I didn't play some devil's advocate because there's an interesting train of thought that could theoretically explain why these kids didn't get fairies. The big thing about Fairy World is that it relies on humans to power the big old wand. More specifically, they have been solely using Crocker's fanatical belief in fairies to keep them afloat. Literally, as soon as Crocker got therapy, Fairy World starts to fall into a bucket of acid. That is not a joke, that's really what happened. Fairy World turned into the fairy ghetto real fast. Eventually, they do change things and draw their wish energy from multiple Crocker-like people, which is still taking advantage of the mentally unstable, but I digress. Maybe someone like Trixie didn't get fairies because she doesn't really interact with Crocker too much. She also doesn't really run afoul of him. If I was a fairy, I would at least try to target someone closer to the Crocker zone, which may be silly, but hey, what can I say? There's also the fact that if fairies don't make wishes at all for their god kids, they could blow up. All fairies know this as far as I can tell, so they probably wouldn't want a god kid that's not making a lot of wishes. Chester kind of fits that bill. I think once he realizes how out of hand wishes could get, he'd slow down on it a bit, which could wreck his fairy. Also, he's pretty willing to offload his fairies, so it's not outside the realm of possibility that he's done that before. And as for Tootie, I already covered that one with the possibility that she had a fairy already and lost them. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Do you agree or disagree with me? Shout at me in the comments, I do read them all. And let me know in those comments who else you guys feel should have gotten fairies. If this video does well enough, I don't know, I'll do another one if people want to see that. Though I would have to think a lot about who to include, but I do have some ideas. And one more time, if you did end up enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe, it helps us out a lot. We're also going to do some live streams, maybe. I'm trying to have it at the same time we release the video, but I don't know, we'll see. I'll post in the community tab about it. Be sure to check it out and ask us questions about whatever your heart desires. We also have a Patreon and I do have some plans for exclusive content there, but for now it's a place to get videos earlier and vote on what we talk about next. Only subscribe to it if you have the money and really support us like that. It's a tip jar with extra benefits, so don't feel pressured to join. But for now, before you go making your life miserable in a short-sighted effort to get fairies, have a good day.